nell'inico modrost danes.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you everyone for coming here. This is really amazing. Just before we start, can you hear me okay? Okay, good enough. Because yeah, the guys were giving me the microphone and I was like, yeah, I can do this myself, no worries. So, okay, today we are going to be talking about first steps in game development, especially about how to start making games professionally. And in professionally, we mean here that this is going to be more than a hobby. This is going to be something to sustain, something to potentially earn money from, whether it is a job or whatever endeavor, the creative endeavor that you will be pursuing yourself. Can I get another slide, please? Good. So what are we going to talk about today? This is, well, first of all, we are hoping that this will be a first talk of many that we will be doing here as a group, as the Slovenia Games Association. So if at any point you think that there is something you'd like to hear here on this stage or any other from me or from other amazing people in this community, then we'll have a questionnaire, something like that, in Discord. So go join the Discord, watch for the news. We'll be asking you guys what is it you want to hear. Because I do have a bunch of topics I can talk about, and many people here I know have a lot of experience, so they would be able to share it with in specific topics that you would seek that would help you here. So yeah, this one is going to be more like all over the place. I'll be talking about what game development actually entails, what different kinds of activities is there, what can you try to get into. We'll talk about how you would get into that and how do you find your place in it, what do you actually want to do, some considerations, some thoughts, and then share a bunch of practical advice on what are the actual things you can do to start on this path sooner. This is kind of going to be slightly beginner friendly, so I know a lot of you here are already working in game development or working on the projects of your own, but I hope that if maybe even you have something here that you maybe didn't think about before or didn't consider. And yeah, in the end, I'll talk a little bit about the current job market, what's there, what to expect if you are planning to look for a job anytime soon, especially in game development, but mostly it's the same thing with the overall IT industry, and share a couple of links and materials that you might use to help you get some information on game design, just starting a new game, going throughout all of that process and maybe finding some useful things that will help you to make the game of your dreams or find a job of your dreams. Can I get a next one, please? So, who the hell am I exactly? Hi, my name is Stefan. I have been working in game development industry for around 12 years by now. I worked on, this is not a big list, but I worked on companies that are AAA or at least AA. One could consider Wargaming one of those. I worked in small indie studios on PC games, mobile games, and I have also worked basically my trade skill is C++ and Unreal Engine programming, but I accidentally found myself in management, project management, product management, and actually helping people build the teams, organize the teams, build the work process to actually have some control, either that is creative control or just organizational control over the team that's doing that. I originally started with a dream of just making an indie studio of my own, so I've been gradually building the skill set to have that happen at some point. It's yet to happen, but I am getting there. Currently, I'm working here in Ljubljana with a company that is called AIR, that is dealing with truck simulation for the purposes of testing and evaluating truck drivers. This is not really game dev, but it's Unreal Engine, it's a simulation software, and I'm helping the guys do that. Yeah, we can go to the next one. So yeah, what does it take to make a game? That is an open question to you guys. What do you think? Like, come up with proposals. What do you need? Game engine. Sure, you got to pick a game engine, that's for sure. What else? Any other proposals?
Assets.
Assets, of course. Whether it be 2D assets, 3D, some sounds, you actually have to produce them or get them somewhere. What do you think else?
Programs.
Yes. Somebody got to write that code.
On the gameplay.
Game design, of course. Yeah, so you guys already have a lot of ideas. Can we get the next one, please? So there is a lot of stuff that one can do when we talk about game development. And this is, by the way, by no means it is to scare you, because you can actually make games without all of that. There were examples of games being made without programmers, or with some substitute for art, or when people make noises with their mouth instead of just having sound design. And all of that can work in your favor and make your game really unique. This is more to show you what, like, the bulk of different professions and different roles that is in the game industry. You don't have to be master of all of them, and in fact you can't be master of all of them because there's just a lot of shit here. But knowing at least that those things exist, and knowing maybe some of them would definitely help you a lot. So of course, some of you mentioned programmers. You have someone to write that code. You need to have a game design. You need to have actual rules of the game. You need to have a skill set, or you need to have someone on your team to have a skill set to build those rules, do the number crunching, maybe some balancing. And these are actually there's a lot of stuff into those. So for the programmer, you can be like a render programmer, an engine programmer who's just doing the tools, the gameplay programmer who's just doing the actual game mechanics. There could be something similar in between the game programmer and game designer, because people with different skill sets who's working with the engine and with the assets that other programmers produce. Inside of game design, there's a lot of things like balancing, ability design for action RPGs or something, overall design of the kit of the characters, the NPCs, the rules of the game, whether it is Tetris where just blocks fall flat, or Skyrim where this is a huge RPG with a bunch of skills and skill system and skill points, how you distribute those. If you look at some of the games that are live service games, they do have monetization, and monetization design is one of the game designers as well. Like designing all those chests, drop rates. In games like World of Warcraft, even all that raid mechanics and the way things drop, everything has to be designed and put in a spreadsheet so the programmers can implement it afterwards. In art, once again, there is all the different kind of art assets you can produce. The 3D art, concept art, which is something that people do before the 3D modeler actually gets to make a model. Concept artists have to make a concept of it, at least how AAA studios do this. You can actually go without it, and you probably should if you're doing this alone. But this is how people work sometimes. Or there's storyboarding for game videos and trailers and things like that. 2D assets for a 2D game where everything is a 2D asset, and some games even mix the two, mix the 3D environment with 2D assets, or 2D environment with 3D assets, whatever. People get creative, that's game development. VFX is one of the things that can go in there, and people who are very familiar with things like Unreal Engine and Unity, there's some big editors there and a lot of stuff that can be done specifically with VFX. So in some of the teams I've been working on, VFX artists were just separate group of people. Actually, it was not even one person, because if you're making an action RPG with all those flashy abilities and spinnings and tornadoes and fireballs, you gotta have VFX for all of that, and that's what those people are doing. Sound design, kind of briefly talked about that, so how the game sounds. There are some examples of games like Overwatch that people played without even looking into the screen because they're kind of trying to orient with the sounds and what they hear. So there's a lot that could potentially go into there, whether it is just making a unique creative sound to give the atmosphere to your game, or make it a utility. For example, like in PUBG, you hear the footsteps and that's part of the gameplay. It's not just a sound that gives the flavor to the game, it's actual part of the game mechanics. Narrative design, whether your game is, like if your game is using that, if you are making it like, I don't know, visual novels are games too, games like Skyrim we already mentioned, they can benefit a lot of narrative design, but also some games that are not specifically, maybe some games that are mechanics heavy and not that much on the narrative side of things. But think Overwatch, for example. That's a game that's kind of not about the narrative. It's just a hero shooter with people running around shooting at each other and doing objectives. But there's actually a huge amount of narrative design put into there because each character has a story and they're talking to each other, and they're like barks that are talking to each other with there's interactions. Some characters know each other and recognize each other, whether they're playing on the same team or not. Like mobile games do this all the time. So all of that needs someone to write all those things and then someone to record that. So there are like voice actors are involved, all those sort of things. Then again, there is a number of activities that are kind of outside this, specifically working with the game and its code and assets, things that are going around that really help it happen. For example, like let's start with what? Seeking investment. Of course, making a game takes time and in most cases money. And what is like the best way to make a game with the money that you don't have? You gotta take that money from somebody else, right? And make somebody else pay for the development on some conditions that help people seek investment. There are publishers that are looking to sponsor the games. Most of them are looking for something that is already have a big promise to be successful. So there's a lot of arguments to be made whether you need a publisher or not. You can work without a publisher. You can work with a publisher, can get a great deal of it. So it all comes down to like your personal situations and things that you are in and your project is in. But yeah, publishing, as I said, another thing. And publisher can help you with a lot of things. They can help you with QAs, with marketing, which is another big thing. Because if you make a game, you gotta have people who know that the game is made. They have to be able to discover it, recognize that it exists, and they can give you their time and their money. If you're releasing on Steam, for example. And it could get complicated because like even though Steam has all those weird algorithms and there's a lot of talk about like collecting wish lists for the Steam game, Steam has one thing that it is doing that is very reasonable for a storefront. They are making money off people posting games there. So they choose the games that earn them more money and promote those games. So to show them that your game may make some of the money and your game can actually be successful and bring them benefit, they have all the algorithms to discover that. And to go through those algorithms, you actually have to apply some marketing effort on your own, whether it is like somewhere on Twitter, having a devlog on YouTube, being a streamer. It worked out for some of the people. Sometimes it just comes down to being discovered by a streamer. So if you remember, there was a game that is still, I think, quite big called Vampire Survivors, which is just a guy doing a game trying to get back the $1,000 he put into the assets. And there was one streamer who wasn't as known before who made a review for that stream. Two guys exploded. Like you can see, like especially like a year after everything was about Vampire Survivors, you can still see games releasing that are just Vampire Survivors but something. Yeah, Spider-Cat has become a big figure in the gaming, like game development, streaming, and reviewing of the demos. Every Next Fest and every indie game developer wants to be reviewed by Spider-Cat now. So this is how it works. A lot of luck goes into it, of course, but there are things you can do to make yourself more discoverable. Then again, we talked about publishing, marketing, community management, and post-release. So say you have released your game successfully, And if you just leave it at that, the initial excitement would die and would be drowned by other games marketing. So what you can do to avoid that and to actually help you with the marketing before releasing the game in the first place is to build a community for the game. You can have a Discord or a group like in some social network or something like that, where people would learn about the game. People who already know about the game would be able to talk about this, talk strategies, talk how they play, what they would like to see, because getting feedback from the actual people who are playing the game is like one of the most important things you see every time, like especially like when people reviewing games on YouTube, posting about them, they're saying, oh, this developer is really listening to the community and building the game with the community, so they're good, so we should all buy their game and help them. That's how it is, and that is one of the things you could leverage potentially. Localization is definitely useful for some games more than the others, especially for the text-heavy games, but one thing to consider is, like, all of us know English here, well, because I'm speaking English, sorry about that, I'm still learning Slovenian, by the way, but to reach a wider audience, for example, there are a lot of people in China even who just don't have English as known, and there's a bunch of people you can reach if you have their language included. And in a lot of countries is like that. So this potentially widens your outreach, and especially, like, imagine there is not as big of a country, but there is an unpopular language to translate to. Imagine people learning that, oh, there's a game that we can play that is already translated in our language, and good at that if you use like one of the localization studios, for example, and not Google Translate, or God forbid something like AI tools, or actually some of them are good, so you can, even that would already allow you to go into that market. And of course, payments, taxes. If you are taking money for your game, you might be using like Epic Game Store or Steam or some other store, but you'll have to do a lot of paperwork to make that happen. Not that much actually, but just some. So you just have to know it exists. Steam gives you like this form for filling the tax questionnaire, that it handles a lot of it yourself, but you might want to register an SP or maybe DOO if you plan to going big. And you'll have to somehow handle all of that to receive money. If there is something small scale, then you can go like PayPal or something like that, and don't worry about this too much. But at some point, like, there are laws and there are limits that if you go above some amount, you have to report that properly. So if you go successful, which is what we all want, right? This would become a consideration for you as well. And once again, we're not diving too deep into all of those topics because each of them can become like a talk like this on their own. What we're saying right now is those things exist. You might want to think about them more. You might want to consider them if you're making a game on your own, or just to learn more about things that are happening around you. If you already have a game dev job, might actually make you more, I don't know, able to rise higher than the competition and higher than the other teams and people who are making games around you. Can we get a next slide, please? So when speaking about going into the game development and becoming a game developer, it's actually easy. You just take a game engine or just a bunch of assets or just any language you want, you start making, and voila, you're a game developer. But when we're talking about starting to earn money with it, there are just two prominent options, I would say, and one option that's somewhere in between. One, you can just find a game development studio that hires people with your specialty and make a game part of their studio and participate in the whole process and learn a lot about this. And this is actually a great way to learn because especially bigger studios have a lot of professionals they have hired, and if you're just starting, it is really good to walk alongside those people, see how they work, see what they do, see where they are right or wrong, and make your own choices. And overall, this is experience that is like the safest as it can get, because obviously we've been hearing a lot about like layoffs recently and stuff like this. So the stability of a studio job may actually be not as stable as we thought it was, but it is still the most stable option out there. So having someone give you benefits, pay you stable salary every month, and caring for you in terms of all the insurance and stuff. That is actually very useful. That makes your life easier, and that gives you a lot of opportunities to learn and do what you like. If you want to pursue some other stuff or make a game of your own, you can do this as a hobby in your own pace. And then again, you can consider going and like an indie developer or a solo developer trying to do what I dream of doing, is opening the indie game development studio, or starting just doing everything as much as you can yourself, or working with outsourcers. Like if you save some money, you can start making a game, find people on Upwork, find some assets that you really like, repurposing them and making something fun out of it that people would enjoy and love. And yeah, this is much risky. It gives you much more creative control because you're not just making someone else's game, you're implementing your own ideas. But yeah, it comes with a lot of consequences, and as we talked about before, time and money is something that you will have to worry about much more in this particular case. And of course, yeah, you can just get a job. And in the meantime, even if it's not a game development job, by the way, you can just get a job that is as close to what you want to do in game development as possible. For example, a programming job or somewhere where your art skills are required. Do that, and also utilize the skills and knowledge you are getting to make a game in your free time on weekends and have it see light of day at some point and release it on Steam and earn a lot of money. Next one, please. First steps into game development. So let's get to some practical advice. Once again, they would be all over the place and aimed at different types of people. So whether you are a game designer or a programmer or just want to find a job, there will be things here that would just give you things to try and get into the game development industry easier. And also, if you are just starting on your journey, most of them are going to be useful anyway. So let's get to the first one, please. What was that? Oh yeah, modding and user-generated content. So a lot of games have modding. A lot of games have communities, huge communities that create amazing mods. Like Skyrim is famous for that. Terraria is famous for that. Minecraft. Those are like the big examples. RimWorld, I've been playing recently. There's a lot of mods for it as well. This is a good opportunity to practice your skills as a game designer, maybe a little bit as a programmer, to create a piece of content for an already existing game. You don't have to worry about the marketing as much. You don't have to worry about producing all the assets. You can just focus on a small thing that you specifically like or dislike about the game and making better. And this already gives you an experience, something you can share with your friends, something you can get feedback on, and something that will ultimately give you skills that you need to make a game of your own someday. Also, some of the games, like, there are games like Roblox, for example, or Genshin Impact released their Milliaster Wonderland, I think it's called, UGC mode recently, which is really close to like something like Unreal Engine from what I saw. I haven't really tinkered with it, so I don't know about these capabilities, but imagine having all the assets, all the game mechanics from a game like Genshin Impact at your disposal to make something of your own. That is potentially huge, and that gets a lot off your shoulders and lets you focus on the fun little thing that you want to do. This is definitely a consideration. Then again, there are some games that are offering map editors, like you bet I'm quite old school with the Heroes of Might and Magic 3 here, but I know that it's been famous around these parts as well. StarCraft, Warcraft, some of the most famous games that we know right now, like Dota, one of the most played games on Steam, if not the most played game on Steam, is like it originally was just a map for Warcraft 3. It wasn't even a separate game. Counter-Strike wasn't a separate game. It was a mod for Half-Life, the first one. So you can do something and it can outshine even the base game that you're making it for. So go for it. It is the path that is open to you. Can we get another one, please? Yeah, this one, actually getting back to Heroes of Might and Magic 3, I had an amazing opportunity to get a workshop from David Mulick, who was one of the game designers on Heroes of Might and Magic 3. And he was actually saying an interesting thing that inspired me back then. I didn't think about it that way. So he gave us a task to just create a game by just following small steps, breaking down just the basic actions you can do in the game. So like you have a square field, so what you can do, you can have a card move right or move left or move up or down, or not, you can have just a one-dimensional thing. So just break down the basic things that you can do, give them some meaning, give them some goals, just build a small mechanics around that, basically making a board game or a card game, and try to make them, try to play it with friends and see what they think. And the amazing thing actually happened. First of all, you might think that like there's so much you can do with it. Actually a lot. We have like 5 different teams of 3 to 4 game designers. Each of them came with something very unique and very different, with a very different game feel even, which is another very important topic we can talk about someday, because this can be a make or break, because mechanics are just there, but what you are actually experiencing when working with those things, when playing with those things as a player, is like one of the most important stuff. If you imagine like Overwatch, maybe when you do a hit, or when you do a hit at a head, or if you hit something that you're not supposed to be shooting, like there's all the sounds, all the visuals, all those things, they kind of make this entire discipline of their own that makes you experience some things, something visceral, something like you just feel, you just can't explain it, it's there. So even without all of that, the mechanics underneath could be fun or not fun. So like the very basic actions. If this is something that you can just go on and on, for example, you and your friend just moving your like your stick figures or whatever you design around this field and trying to achieve some goal, whether it is fun or not is what the game is built on. So the goal is to take those basic actions. Like if you're making a survival game, you will be doing a lot of just hitting things with a fist or with a tool, and a lot of like placing things, and those things need to feel good to do. They don't need to feel not tedious, not too grindy, because if you spend players' time or something that they don't like more than on something they do like, then you end up making a problem for yourself. So this approach actually helps to think about this correctly, and in the end you'll have you'll have a game, you'll be a game designer for a minute, you'll get to play this with your friends, get their feedback, understand what you did right and wrong, and this could also help you a lot designing things further on the way for the games, other games you'd like to make. Next one, please. Oh, what's that exactly? Yeah, specializing versus being a generalist. So for most of the games, like all of us have cool ideas. All of us have things that we would like to do someday, things that, oh, that could be cool, or this could be cool. But one thing is true. Ideas are unfortunately not worth as much without implementation to back them up. A lot of people actually are thinking that like I'm not telling my idea to anyone because somebody could steal it. Well, guess what? Nobody will. People are stealing only proven ideas. So if somebody steals your idea, you actually won, because there is something you have discovered that could potentially shake the world. Otherwise, it all comes down to implementation, and as we talked before, there's a lot that can go into the implementation. So learning one of the skills, and if you're getting hired, you have to do that. Like you have to be a programmer or an artist, because people hire someone for a particular thing. It's actually like being a generalist, it's actually harder being hired, because you have this, your resume is all over the place, like you've been this and you've been that and you've been narrative design, and come to think of it, who needs a programmer who did some narrative design before? Like that's nonsense. Like the guy's probably going to be problematic because you don't let him write some narrative stuff, and you need him to write not narrative things, not text, but actual functioning code. So this can become tricky. for the path that is just getting a job in the industry and keeping the job as much as possible and getting as much as possible from that job, one of the best ways to do it is focus on one particular skill, like you're a programmer or you are a 3D artist. Actually, something as technical artist is becoming more and more important, I think. As any generalist, it's kind of slightly harder to find your own niche, but it is actually important because it's someone who is familiar with technical pipeline and also how to make assets, and having basically best of both worlds, they can help programmers understand what it is about the art that they need to work with, like how they need to render it, how they need to build around that, and it helps artists to understand how to produce assets in a way that makes programmers happy, that makes the game run smoother, have less polygons, and give the same good picture, and be really optimal. And how to cut off all that stuff that Unreal Engine turns on by default, and you have to really disable to actually make a game that is running smoothly with a good FPS. All of that. In any case, there are and if you're being a generalist, of course, it would be easier for you to communicate with specialists. That's how I accidentally find myself in a management role, because you end up talking to different people, you understand their positions, you understand how they work and what their day-to-day routine are, and that really helps you manage a lot of conflicts and make sure people are working together instead of working against each other, because that's what's happening a lot, for example, between, as I said, programmers and artists. Sometimes programmers and game designers, a lot of stuff, I've seen a lot of arguments between those and others, just for the sake of game designers know how to make a player happy, how the thing should behave from the feeling perspective, and the programmer actually knows how to make that stuff. And maybe they hit some limits, maybe what is asked of them is not as easily done, or would take a lot of effort that the company just doesn't have right now, or you don't have resources to build. And having those people of those skill sets actually talk with each other and find a meaningful compromise is really important, and being able to be the person who can kind of bring together of both worlds is something that could be important as well. But then again, it might also lead to having trouble while being hired, because a lot of people who need generalists in their team don't realize that, and it might be hard convincing them to do so. But overall, what you need to do is just lean into something that you can do for a lot of time. So if you just realize that you come home from work or from university or whatever, and you're just tinkering with like Python scripts or just small programs and writing your own stuff, maybe you should lean into that. If you like drawing stuff on a napkin or on the side of the textbook, then maybe you should try to kind of make that your profession, turn your passion into an actual thing that earns you money, and through that dive into the game development industry as a hired specialist in that field that is already making you happy. Next one, please. What was that? I can see it from here. Then again, at some point you gotta start, right? You gotta start with your own thing. And the best advice I can give here is just really make a small thing. Don't do it like me. Make a small little thing that is very manageable, that can be completed in a very limited amount of time. Even if it won't be like the game of the year, it would still be a finished project that you can get feedback on, that might end up being drawing some attention to that. Game jams are a great way of doing that, because when you're doing a game jam, you are meeting a bunch of people, you build a network with them. For example, you are a programmer and you don't know how to do art, but somebody out there is, and by doing a game with them over the course of I don't know, a week or a weekend even, you make this connection, and after a while, maybe they found a job, they can recommend you, or you found a job and you can recommend them, or you decide, screw that, we're making a game of our own, or we're taking this game from Game Jam and putting it to Steam and starting to a company with it because it's being successful. In any case, this is a really great way to kind of see what other things, like I did the second slide of this presentation about like what are the things around the game development industry overall, like what will you have to face when you're doing this, and completing this path at least once, even if you're making something free. Well, it's not actually free because you have to pay $100 to even list a game on Steam, even if it's free. But even doing that, getting the game in the hands of actual players, itch.io can help you a lot with that. They're hosting a lot of game jams, by the way. This would give you a lot of like players' feedback, and players really see games, especially as a developer, if you spend some time doing this, players will see your game very differently from how you see this, and embracing that and learning what they like and dislike and what they discover about the game might surprise you and might give you a lot of insights for your next project. And then again, you'll already have experience, you'll already have people you worked with, you maybe have built some community by that time. Scope creep is one of the biggest problems that games just get out of scope. So the games like, there's been legends about games like MMOs, survival craft games, like open-ended games, like even roguelikes sometimes. You can imagine, like, roguelike is what? Just some random generation, a bunch of items that would like just combine differently with each other, and that's already making very good reusable game, meaning that there's a lot of assets that are easy to produce, but when used together, they create different kind of experiences through just combinations, and that's supposed to be something that is making a lot of playtime from a little of work put into that. But you can actually dive into rabbit hole and just sink there because, well, roguelikes can really get complicated. So before you do that, really have to think about what you're doing. But I'm not saying it's impossible. That's actually a good way to kind of find a good way to put your resources that you have to good use and make the most out of them. But it can get tricky. Games like action RPG, to just, for your first project, just God forbid, make a Tetris, make something easy, make just a tic-tac-toe, and then you'll already know a lot, and it would be much easier to even estimate the scope of the next project. Enough of that, let's get to the next one. Oh yeah, the dreaded question of which engine to use or none at all. Once again, each of those topics deserves a separate discussion, so if any of you wants to hear about that, let us know in the Discord. I can share most of the information. As I said, I'm an Unreal Engine programmer, so I can talk a lot about Unreal Engine, not as much about other engines, but overall, Unreal is this huge, scary professional tool that is built for big teams, and you will spend a lot of time learning it. After you learn it, it may help you a lot because it's basically a multiplayer shooter in a box. Like, you open Unreal Engine, you already have a multiplayer shooter. What you do with it is up to you. Maybe you don't need all of that. Maybe you need less than that. But there is a lot of structure. There are some amazing frameworks like Gameplay Ability System, which Fortnite was built on, which Paragon, their closed project, was built on. They actually built it for Paragon, which is like just action RPG in a box. So you add that plugin, which was developed by Epic Games and is supported by Epic Games. You have an action RPG now, congratulations. You still have to make all the abilities, but the structure for it, the attributes, the effects is there. But then again, this system is even trickier to learn than the Unreal Engine itself. So this is something that is best learned when you have someone helping you, but you can also figure it out on your own. It just will take more time. And it's slightly restricting in terms of architecture because before using Unreal effectively, you really need to learn what it gives. It sounds like an obvious thing, but it actually gives you a bunch of objects by default. So like there's a player controller, pawn, player state, game mode, and just a bunch of stuff, and you really can get around them. So you have to learn to use them in the right way for your game specifically. And if you don't, you'll just end up waging a war against the engine, which never ends well. Unity, on the other side, it does not provide enough things out of the box. For example, like the simple movement system, you'll have to make on your own, and there is different ways of making that, but then again, it is open to interpretation. If you have a really good movement system in mind, you think it's better than what's there, or the purposes of your game require something unique, Unity allows you, like it gets no roadblocks in front of you. You just get in there, you have this like rendering engine, this component system, and that's it. You are free to experiment and to do whatever you like. It's actually easier to get into. In my experience, it was like, we had this little experiment one day when I, as an Unreal Engine specialist, went to learn Unity for a month, and another guy who was a Unity programmer went to learn Unreal Engine for a month. And we had to make a first-person shooter, a multiplayer first-person shooter out of it, and see how it like behaves, how much trouble we'll have there. And yeah, well, you can imagine the other guy have it running after like 3 days. And I've been struggling with like having all those things set up in Unity because you have this plugin and this plugin and you have to marry all of this together. But yeah, it definitely gives you more freedom. And as a programmer, I've heard a lot of people actually prefer Unity to Unreal. Godot is one of the biggest considerations right now. It didn't used to be like that, but it's becoming bigger and bigger. I haven't dipped my toes into that myself, but I know that it's shifting more towards 3D now. It used to be like more 2D engine. It's mostly closer to Unity, I would say, but it has, like in terms of documentation, in terms of like how you do things there, it gives you more streamlined way, meaning there's like default way of doing certain things that could definitely help you get started. And of course, there are things like RPG Maker or Game Maker or stuff like that that are just custom built for a certain genre of the game that you could use, and you can make a game with it, and you can make awesome game with it. So yeah, go for it. And some games just don't marry well with any kind of the engine. So if you think about the game like Noita, which is definitely not a game that you should target for your first game that you're making. But in any case, for games like this, where like it is really like everything is its own thing, and it's like every pixel is simulated, yeah, Unreal would probably not like that. With Unity, you'll have to do a lot of things to support that. You'll basically have to implement all this system from the ground up. So in some cases, it's better to just end up making your own stuff. This is a consideration mostly for programmers, because if you're not a programmer, just take existing engine, what the hell. I mean, things like Unreal Engine even allow you to make things without programming. There's this blueprint system, but it is like, it's a little lie, because it's not making games without programming. It's making game without writing text in a existing programming language. But Blueprints is just a visual programming language, and you will end up programming. It's just less scary, and you can, without writing just code and worrying about the syntax, make a lot of things happen. It's really useful, and by doing that, you'll actually start to learn programming, and you'll have to learn programming to do those things properly and optimally and in the best way possible. But sometimes you just don't need to do that. You can just go with whatever. You can just make things like some animations, have some simple game mechanics, and who cares if they're not optimal if people are going to run them on PCs anyway, not like it's a mobile game or something. So like those things that allow you to make games without programming sometimes can really help you out. Not only talking about Unreal or just overall different kind of languages like that. Next one. What's there? Oh yeah, power of friendship. It is indeed. Having people in your network, having to know people who know how to do things. Like I, for example, have a bunch of friends, like my childhood friends is a technical artist. I'm still asking him a lot of stuff about how you do this or this, how you optimize this asset. He is asking me a lot of programming questions. And having friends like that really helps you a lot. Having people like you, amazing people here, just talk, know each other. It could help you a lot in the future, especially when we're going to be talking about hiring session. That's basically like the best way to get hired right now is just through your network. But overall, it does help you rise above, like just if you're just sitting there doing things on your own, sometimes you need a little nudge. Sometimes you just need a friend to talk with. There's this famous thing even with the programmers that to solve the problem, you just sometimes tell it to a rubber duck, and while telling that, you are finding the solution. So being able to discuss it with a live person is, of course, even better. And then again, you might see different people with different talents and build a team together and make a game of your dreams together. And you here are already on the right track because you came to this meetup, hear me rambling, and be able to talk to each other over beers, by the way, which you can order there. Yeah, it's a good start. You're on the right track. Yeah, there's a bunch of game conferences, slightly bigger or smaller, that you can attend, where you can meet potential employers, by the way, or just friends, or just see what other people are doing. In events like DevGam, for example, you just wander around, see all those booths standing around. Gamescom even, but Gamescom is just really big and it's hard to get to anything that is not an indie booth. But then again, there's a ton of indie booths there and different publishers, and getting to know a publisher is a lot, because having a person of contact who actually recognizes you when you write them a letter with a new game of yours, it will actually, it will just put you above everyone who's just doing a cold email over the network to a person they never met before. Next one, please. Yeah, the dreaded question, state of the hiring right now. So you probably heard a lot about like layoffs that have been happening throughout the year. Like 2025 started with a lot of layoffs in different tech companies, and especially like after COVID. Before COVID, people were just doing whatever. You can see, like, if you have a LinkedIn profile, by the way, people would reach out to you, like companies like Ubisoft, EA Games, like those big AAA companies that were growing uncontrollably. They were hunting for new specialists. Like for me, it was every like couple of weeks somebody sent me an interview offer. Just come talk to us. Let's see how it goes and stuff like this. Right now, it is much harder than that. It is slightly easier if you're a specialist, like if you're a developer, a programmer, it would be slightly easier for you to get a job offer. But overall, there's been reports of people doing hundreds of emails to different job postings and not receiving a reply. That happens for many ways. Well, some of the companies just post that jobs that they don't intend to hire for, because that's how they present themselves to higher-ups, I guess. That is just weird politics inside AAA companies sometimes. A lot of it is, like a lot of HR, human resource, they call it, is assisted by AI tools right now, which means that somewhere, it's not like it's replacing actual people looking at the resumes, but from the American market, I've seen people just doing AI interviews, which means you just talk to an AI or record a video and AI analyzes it before any actual human actually communicates with you. Which, like, if you manage to tick all the boxes, it kind of, yeah, it gets you a fair chance, but sometimes, yeah, you really have to play the game. And the best way around all of that is, as we said, knowing people. Having someone in your network who can sit at a corporate meeting saying, okay, in the next quarter, we need to hire like another programmer, another technical artist, and they can send this to you and say, this is the time. Now you should send the resume, or maybe they can recommend you, because people who are recommended by employees are reviewed first of all. So having someone in the company offer you for consideration already gives you much better chance than you just sending a letter to them yourself. And sometimes, especially like you have to make yourself discoverable in a LinkedIn or in like Upwork, any other platform that posts freelancers. I got my current job because I had an Upwork profile I didn't even intend to use. I was just considering freelance at some point, but people found me there, and I got a job that is currently, I would call, the best job I had in my entire career, because of just how nice it is to work with these people and those things that I'm doing. And this may be true to you. So the best things will actually find you, and you have to make yourself discoverable for that. So if you don't have a LinkedIn profile, go make it. I've seen people saying that maybe it's going to start falling off and going to be replaced by something else. I'm not sure what at this point, so just put your resume where you think HR people could be able to find it, which is at least those places like the freelance websites and LinkedIn. And that would already give you a chance, like maybe what somebody would be looking for a person like yourself, and they would find you, and they would call you for an interview, and then everything's in your hands. Those two things would be the best way, like knowing people and being discoverable. That's, I guess, the best job and best way to find a job. And if you experience that it may be hard in the coming months or years, don't lose heart, because the companies are like, they laid off a lot of people and they're trying to replace those people with AI in a lot of cases. And you can bet that will backfire on them, so they will need live people soon enough. And when they do that, a lot of old people, older kind of people who've been in the system for a while will already leave for something of their own. A lot of us are losing trust into that kind of thing right now, so it will be up to the younger, less experienced people to take that torch and carry it forward. So the companies might be looking for new specialists, and this is where you people, or like people you know, might come in. And if you're looking for an opening in game development, who knows where it will go from there. I'm not actually doing any predictions, but I just want to encourage you here that even if it's hard right now, it might be easier in the future. Things change. What do we have next? Next, we have a bunch of links and devices. You can, I don't know, take a picture, screenshot it. I'll probably send this on the Discord as well, so you will be able to look it up. There's a lot of resources on the internet that you can use to educate yourself. One of the starter things is Thor's, aka Pirate Software's website, where he has a bunch of game development advice, which is very encouraging and quite helpful. It would basically, he's telling a lot of things that I haven't touched on today, talking about the tools, how you can do the things without even the basic skills in a certain specialty, and he's absolutely correct when he says that. So go look it up. It can give you a nice morale boost and real meaningful advice that you could follow. Another one is Extra Credits. This is slightly old-ish. I know they're still around. I know they're still making videos, but especially their videos from 13 to 11 years ago, when they were just starting. They were talking a lot about the basics of game design, how things are structured in the game. They were talking about the game feel, the interactions with players, all the different mechanics, how they come together, talking a lot of different jobs in the game development industry. So for me, it was really helpful. It really what got me going. So there are still on their page in YouTube, if you scroll way down in the videos, they still pretty much contain information that is still useful after all those years. What else do we have? Andrew Chambers actually got recommended in YouTube for me recently. He's just a guy with a lot of game development, game design knowledge that's been working on there's surprising number of games over the course of 20 years with some titles that you definitely know. And he's once again talking game design, giving a lot of game design advices, how to think, what to consider. He's doing this in a fun, popular way, really easy to listen. So if you need something to chill out for when you're just drinking your coffee or preparing to go to work or to study, this is something that you can definitely start with. How to market a game is a really good marketing advice, specifically focusing Steam. the guy, Chris Zukowski, has a Discord, he has like a website, he's doing courses, he's analyzing the Steam algorithms every time, like every month he comes with new advices, new considerations, he's interviewing people on Steam who's doing that, he's recommending events that you might do with your game to increase your visibility. And this is really when you get to a stage where your game needs to be marketed, which is actually almost from the start, by the way. You really should look into that, like especially if you're going indie route, if you need to advertise your game somehow. Feedback Quest, or indie questing they are called otherwise. This is a group of people who are doing like basically discovery queues and some quests for developers and players to allow smaller, like invisible developers to get some visibility from players. One of the things that they are doing that really helped myself is they're doing this feedback quest thing on itch.io, which is a bunch of developers joining a game jam with already existing games. And over the course of a week or so, they play each other's games, they give feedback. So you gotta play some other games that has been submitted, give feedback to them, and then those developers will come and give feedback to you on your game. And meanwhile, some streamers will be looking into that and maybe streaming that, maybe giving you some feedback. Most of them are less well-known streamers and almost unknown developers, but it will get things going for you. It will give you, like, if you don't know where to start, this is a good starting point if you already have a game or a prototype or a demo where you can go with it to get some actual feedback from people who are interested in it. Life after layoff, that is like, this name sounds like Dread, but this is an actual corporate recruiter who is like, he's running a YouTube channel talking about different recruiting practices, how it is generally on the job market, how to make your resume, find your job, how to like make yourself discoverable, a lot of actionable advice on what I told you today. Keep in mind that this guy is focused on the American market, so he's talking a lot about US, and as you might know, US have like very different like overall employer protection rights and stuff like this. So it is, well, European market would be slightly different, but still a lot of things that are happening in IT happens all over the place, especially when it's going to be AI, which is, well, there's a lot of it right now, and there's like you can't get away from it, and people are starting to use it. Some people are using this in a good way as a real tool that helps them increase productivity. Some people are trying to replace each other with it. But in any case, he's talking about all of that and giving a good advice on how you can actually find a job as a job seeker. And yeah, Gamedev job postings, there are a couple of sites. There's a guy, Amir Satvat, who's just making a list of Gamedev jobs. He's trying to police that in a way that those jobs are actual jobs, not dead jobs I talked about before. But I mean, it's getting bigger. There's a lot of jobs on that list. I am imagining hard to manage. So even if you're using that, it can be hard to get a reply from an actual employer. But still, it is worth considering. And just doing this once in a while, just sending a bunch of resumes, a bunch of cover letters, would really, like, it would hurt if you have that time. Because right now in the current market, searching for a job is a full-time job on its own. And yeah, if you really gotta look for a job anytime soon, just be prepared for that. And definitely, if you already have a stable job, do not quit it to make something unless you have a backup plan. Because if you quit the market, it may be hard to get back. So the best advice would be just find a stable job, continue working on your game. If you have it, if you don't have it yet, start making it. And yeah, look for an opportunity, look for maybe investment that would allow you to do your game as a full-time job, or just do smaller games. There is a tactic of doing just small games, like a game every week, to see what fires on Steam, for example, or on site like itch.io, what gets traction, and then build off that. So really a lot of things can be done to decrease the amount of randomness that goes into making a successful game. I guess that would be it for today from my end, and we are being open to your questions. If you have some, I'd be happy to answer them right now. Thank you very much.